Okay, so today is a beginner guitar lesson. And it's going to be on chord transitions, moving from one chord to the other. I received just recently a little comment with a question from, we'll call him L, okay? And he's not the first one that's asked this, but he was saying that he has pretty good comfortable movements with his right hand in terms of being able to pick and strum. But where he has problems is moving from one chord shape to the next, or from one note to the next. I didn't quite understand his comment, but I understood it enough to know that in watching new players, this thing of moving from chord shape to chord shape, it can get really challenging. And it takes a while for your brain to connect in such a way to improve that muscle memory, they call it, so that you can actually move from shape to shape. If you're struggling with it, you're normal. Okay, there's nothing abnormal about it. I don't care how long you've been playing. When you sit down and you try to learn something new, you're always looking for easier ways to transition between those chord shapes. And you got to stop and think about it as you learn it. And sometimes it's a matter of repeating it over and over again until it gets comfortable, depending on how difficult the piece is you're trying to play. But right now you're trying to learn, and you're trying to learn these, some people call them country chords, some people call them cowboy chords. I don't know what they are. I just know they're like the first chords you'll learn, and you're trying to learn the G chord, the D chord, C and A and E and F and B and so on, right? And as you're working on these chords, and you're trying to get it so that you're real comfortable with them, you find that you sometimes, the chords don't sound right. They're coming out kind of muffled, or you're missing some of the notes, or you can't remember, exactly what strings am I supposed to be playing, or it doesn't sound right. You do an A chord, something sounds off, and really it's because you really don't want to be playing that low E with it. So there's little things you can do like muffle that. Well, we're not going to get into that right now, but it's a challenge, and it takes time. And you have to just like the way you eat an apple, it's one bite at a time. You have to approach this one bite at a time too. One chord at a time. One chord at a time. And then you put two together, and then you put three together, right? And it starts getting easier and easier. Well, I thought today what I would do is try to answer L, we'll call him L, his question about his left hand and how he doesn't feel like he has any independence at all, moving from either note to note or chord to chord or what have you, okay? So I'm going to give some tips that I think would be good for any beginner in terms of how you approach this, so that maybe it'll get a little bit easier, and just maybe you might learn a little faster. You might not too, and that's okay too. It takes repetition. You cannot get away from that. I don't know any other answer but, than to try to have some good habits in how you practice and repetition. I mean, those two things right there will move you along the best. But there are things you can do to make the transitions easier and to get your brain to connect faster, okay? I'm going to start out with number one. I've written them down here, so you'll see me look over once in a while so I don't miss anything. But the first thing I thought about was the fact that I like to think in shapes, okay? I just do. It's just the way you'll notice a lot of my videos are using patterns and shapes. And I don't know if everybody thinks like that, but I do know for me it's helpful to see a pattern in something, because once I do, I can remember it easier. And so creating patterns in your mind as you're approaching each of those chords is very, very helpful, okay? Now, we have chord charts, and this was another question that came up as well. Sometimes we see these chord charts, I'm not even sure all the information, what it means. Well, part of it is that there's no two chord charts alike. Some of them bring in information about the numbers, the fingers that you use. Some bring in information about the strings that you're going to be playing. You'll see the little X's and the 0. X means you don't play that string. And the 0 means you're playing it without putting a fret on it, without fretting it. It's open. And if there's nothing there, you'll probably look down here and see the pattern, the little dots, and that means that's where your fingers go. And some of those dots have numbers in the circle, and that means that's the finger you use as you count 1, 2, 3, and then the pinky is 4. Right, so yeah, there is no two charts alike, because some of them don't have numbers and X's and O's at all. They're just a pattern. And so whenever I'm thinking about a chord, I'm kind of seeing that chord chart in my mind. I see that pattern, and in doing so, what I want is I want my fingers to land on the fingerboard in that pattern. Not one note at a time. I don't want this, okay? Because if you're doing that, it'll take you forever to make the D chord. Now, I realize the first time you make the D chord, you're probably going to look at it and think, oh, my first finger should go here, my middle finger should go here, and my pinky, or my ring finger should go here, okay? That's fine, do that. But once you establish that in your mind, stop, okay? Leave your fingers on the fingerboard and think about it. Look at the chord chart. Think about the way your fingers are. Spend time looking at it. And then start, and this moves on to the next point, okay? Start kind of picking up and letting go, and then land all those fingers back in that shape, okay, onto the fingerboard. So here's D, then release it. Mix them up a little bit. Go back. That's D again, okay? But try to bring it back in that shape, not this. Got that? So you can mix your fingers up so they forget, and then say, okay, fingers, do a D. There we go. Got it, okay? Or you could just sit and just kind of bounce on and off a little bit. But spend time on D. Don't just say, okay, now I know D. Okay? Spend time with it until when you can take your fingers off the fingerboard and then go back and put that D down without having to do one at a time. Okay? You want to be able to just reach over and make that chord as a unit. Okay? Okay. So now you're thinking in shapes, chord shapes, rather than, sounds like a doorbell. Okay? So that's a really good exercise and a great way, because then you're going to go on to say you want to do the next chord, you want it to be your A chord. Okay? So then, you're going to look at that shape, think about it, place it, take your fingers off, go back on. Maybe even try going back and forth between the two and keeping the shape. Once you get to the place where you're good with the D and good with the A, go back and forth. Or if it's a G. Got that? But it's not, you don't want to be doing that. It'll be too slow, okay? All right. So I think you got the point. But learn each of your chords, spend time with them, learn them as a shape rather than as one note at a time, and start practicing moving shapes, okay? Shapes that you have now in your head, and start with the most common, which G, I think G, E minor, C, and D. You'll find those are real common to start out. Then you'll add A, and you'll add B, and so on. You got C. So yeah, but learn each one, spend some time with it until your brain can see it as a shape. Get to the place where you can just, if somebody says make a C chord, you're not doing this, you're doing this. Okay? Now, you have to realize that's a C chord, but so is this. So and so is this. There's other places to make a C chord. But for now, because you're just starting out, you're just learning shapes. Those cowboy shapes that you'll use over and over again. And once you get these chords down, you can play just about anything. And so when you go on that camping trip, get those music books out and play those old songs. Now, the other thing is that once you learn these chords, now it's time to start thinking about what's familiar between the two chords that you're going to be changing to, okay? Let's say you want to play a G chord and you want to go to a C chord. Well, I like to play G chord like this, see that? And we play the C chord like this. But what you could do is you can leave these two in place and just pick these two fingers up. Now, it's not, I think it's called a C9, okay? But, so it's not a traditional C chord, but you can use it in place of a C chord. And you leave these two fingers in place, you don't move them, and just pivot. And now you're going from G to C just by, or G to another form of a C, without having to pick everything up and move to it. So there's G. Or you might want to do 1, 2, 3, and 4, and 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay. All right. I got barking dogs here. Hold on one second. Bernice, Tilly, go play someplace else. Go play. Go on. This is not playtime here. That's Tilly. She's a Shih Tzu. And Bernice is a Bernese Mountain Dog and Poodle mix. And you ought to see them play. Tilly runs the roost. She's the little one. She's feisty. Okay, so back to the pivot. So look for opportunities to pivot, and this is a really good one. I think it's one that's used a lot. So it's G to C, doing it this way rather than... You can do both, and they both work, and there's reasons why you would do them different ways. Because sometimes you want to go back and use that full C chord because you want that pinky chord to bring in some different melody. But at the same time, when you're learning especially, look for ways to pivot those chords. Let me show you another one. How about, here's the E. Let's say we're going from E to A to B. Well, I found that if you make the E chord, right, when you go to the A, you could make the A chord this way. Okay, first of all you're doing is you have to change the whole, you're moving all your fingers, and there's not a pivot here at all. It's just picking that up. But the reason why I'm using these 3 fingers is because when I go to get to the F or to the B chord, I'm just going to slide those up and then take my pinky finger or my first finger and put it on the 2nd fret first string. See that? It's not really a pivot, but I'm using the chord shapes so that I can leave them in that position and just slide them, and then reach over and grab that 2nd fret of the 1st string. Okay, so you have that's one way to do that, but there's another way that you could use a pivot. And that is just roll over. You notice I'm not picking this up. I'm leaving it there because I'm going to go back. So if you're doing... I don't pick this up because it's going to be there when I go back to the E. And if I want to slide up to B, again, I'm going to just use these two fingers. They have a tendency to want to hit the other strings, though. So at that point, you might want to do the full chord. But here, you could just, you're just pivoting over. All right. So you see what I mean about that. There's other ones you can use, like going from D minor to B flat. So here's the D minor. All I did was slide that middle finger up. Everything else stayed in place. And then I'm going to go to the F and then C. But you notice there's not a lot of movement. Okay? So look for those opportunities to have less movement in between your chords, to use some fingers that could just stay in place while you pivot over to the notes that you need to create your chord shape. Okay, so it goes against that whole thing of moving as a full shape, but it's another way to do it. All right. So, but think ahead. Kind of visualize it in your mind before you move to it. Eventually, you don't think about it. You say D, you go to D, G, E minor, C. It just happens because your brain and your fingers connect, and you develop that muscle in your brain to where it remembers it, and it becomes automatic. Like when you drive a car, you don't think about, oh, there's a stop sign, I am going to put my foot on the brake. Or there's something that happens automatic. You hope. Although some people, the brain hiccups and they drive through it, but for the most part, that's not what happens. That's a hiccup. That's a brain error. Okay, but if you don't stop at the stop sign, because it tends to be automatic. Light turns red, it's automatic. You stop. You're not thinking about it as much. Your brain is in the background processing all these things you need to do because you've done it so many times, and it becomes automatic. Taking your foot off the gas and putting it on the brake. When I was a kid, I was learning how to drive a car, and my stepfather was teaching me, and we came home, and I was so glad to get home in one piece driving that car for the second time. And there's a long story behind that. But as I was coming up the driveway, he said, okay, take your foot off the gas and put it on the brake, where I'd already done that. And my brain had never connected the footwork to the place where it knew it was on the brake. And I took it off the brake and put it back on the gas, and I went flying up the driveway. Because the muscle memory wasn't there. It hadn't happened yet. I was a young driver. And so I was just learning. Now, I don't think I would do that. Although some days I wonder. But it's just automatic. I stop. I get in the driveway. I don't have to think about, okay, take your foot off the gas and put it on the brake. It just happens. So you'll get to that place when you're playing the guitar. But it takes repetition, practice, using some of these methods of moving as a whole, thinking ahead, using pivots if you have them there, like shapes. And then also there's that thing that you could do with just maybe when you're starting a chord, like a B chord. I think this is a good example of it. Here we are, here's a B chord. Well, to put a B chord in place, you're doing it this way. I mean, you can borrow this. There's different ways to do a B chord, but I'm going to show you this way, okay? What you could do is start the B chord, and as you're playing it, you have a split second to reach up and finish it. Start playing it, and as you start playing it, you finish it, okay? I mean, that's another way to do things. You'll see that a lot in fingerstyle. You notice I don't put my finger up here until I need it. See, instead of making that full chord, I just... Okay, so that's another thing that can be done. So I just thought today I'd share with you some thoughts on that. You may have some. If you do, share them. Write them in the comments. I'd like to hear what you have to say about it. So I think I've covered about everything. Let's just go over it real quick. Focus on using shapes, on using the whole hand. And then once you do that, start practicing with repetitions in that shape. Take your fingers off, put it back on until you get used to it, okay? And practice with a metronome. Start working between two chords, going back and forth, and stick to those two chords. Set that metronome up. Go slow, and try to get to the place where you can keep up with the metronome, but you're able to switch between those two chords, whatever ones you're working on. Bounce with your fingers on the strings. You know, that's another way. Once you get to the chord shape, bouncing on and off helps. And then you can start playing on the lowest string and then finish your chord up as you go along, although that's kind of an advanced player's process, but nevertheless, it is a way to do it, all right? Okay, so I hope that helps, and I hope you all have oh, don't forget to subscribe if you haven't. I'm hoping that by the end of the year, I'll have 40,000. I did hit 30,000. I'm working on it slowly, but I'm hoping for that. And we'll see if it happens. It was my goal that I set at the beginning of the year. Whether it happens or not, I don't know. I'm not going to fret it, quote, unintended, but I'm not going to fret it if it doesn't, but it is something I'm working towards. So if you haven't subscribed, hit that subscribe button. Hit that hype button, because that helps get the videos out a little bit more in the algorithm. And I hope you have a great day or night, wherever you are in this world.